You thought I was going to make you wait to the end of the video to talk about this change, but nope, I am covering it first because it is such a huge change to itemization in set 8 of Teamfight Tactics, plus Mortdog responds to my tweet. What? Even though I'm covering the biggest change first, I do recommend that you stay till the end of the video because I am covering all the major changes that you actually do need to know about the set and what is going to set you up for success. So hopping right into it, this is the biggest change to the season in my opinion for items. Infinity Edge and Jeweled Gauntlet combo. It is no longer a thing. You can still build them together technically, but as you can see here in my response from Mortdog that I tweeted to earlier, it's definitely not the ideal build path anymore unless it's kind of a hybrid damage unit. So as we know, Jewel Gauntlet used to give your abilities the chance to do crit damage as well as increase your crit percentage chance. Infinity Edge would top you up to that 100% to make sure your abilities are going to crit, and then everything above that is going to be converted into critical strike damage. That mechanic is no longer. There's no real incentive for going over 100% crit chance. In some cases, you may want to even hover around that, 70 to 85% crit chance, and then just go all AP so that overall in the scheme of the battle you're going to be doing more damage. We'll have to play around and see, but with the new items there is still a good path to build 100% crit whether you're doing ability damage or physical damage. Another interesting change is that they changed it so that physical spells basically scale the same way as magic spells and they follow the same damage formula. That is going to open up so many new build paths, and as much as I love the Infinity Edge Jeweled Gauntlet build path, I'm kind of excited to see how we can evolve and start utilizing some of those other items like Gunblade, like Ginsu's Rage Blade, some of those other somewhat hybrid items that just were never optimal to build. Now we can really start to consider them. So moving on to the general item changes for set 8. Unfortunately, items in general are going to be taking a nerf. They want the units that are supposed to be more powerful, 4 or 5 cost units, to be more powerful in general and not rely on items, and that way they can ensure that the higher cost units are going to be more of the carries. Reroll builds will still be effective, and that is still going to be a possibility, but when you're talking about a 4 cost 2-star and a 2 cost 2-star, there should be almost no scenarios where the 2 cost is dominating the 4 cost. There will also be way less of a gap between somebody that has 0 items and 3 items. There will still be a gap, but it just won't be as drastic. I'm interested to see how this change will play out. Items are such a fun part of the game, so I hope they don't feel irrelevant, but I think that there's a lot of stats built into the traits this time around, so hopefully that's where you will get some of your power spikes from. Other than that, the big major general change is that they have gotten rid of dodge chance, so your Thief's Gloves and your gloves are just no longer going to give you a dodge chance, but they have increased the crit percentage, and of course because of the whole Jeweled Gauntlet Infinity Edge changes, that makes sense. They need to have a little bit more crit going into the items. I don't know anyone that's specifically built around dodge anyway, so you know what, let's give it a try. If it's a terrible change and AD comps just start dominating because there's no way to mitigate the damage, then they'll revisit it at. Now we're going to go into the specific item changes. If you don't see the item on this list, that means that basically, other than the nerfs that they did to every item overall, the changes are negligible, that it's not worth mentioning. The item still works the same, the stats are relatively the same, so just focus on these bigger changes because those are the ones that are going to affect your builds the most, and that's where we want to focus our time. First up, we have Static Shiv. This actually gives you 20 ability power now. I love this change. You can use it for high AP cast cost units or attack speed champions that scale with AP, and it's going to be a lot less clunky and awkward to place on your units. We also have Protector's Vow. This one is going from kind of a team defensive item where everybody's going to get a shield to a larger shield, but just for one unit. Again, it's really hard to time when your whole team's going to need a shield, so I actually think I do like this change, because sometimes you would get the shield way before your team needs it, and then it felt kind of like a waste. So a stronger shield to keep your frontline tank alive and help them cast faster, I think that's going to be huge, especially because some of the better tanks this season do have some crowd control in their kits. We have the new item Guard Breaker that is of course replacing Dragon's Claw. I used to love Dragon's Claw, but I do find that it wasn't really worth building, especially in the last few sets, so I'm kind of happy they're trying something new and gives units another build path to do some cool damage. It grants bonus attack damage and ability power, and your abilities and attacks deal 25% more damage to shielded enemies. So that is going to be great for cutting into shields. There's a lot of shields this season, so I think this is going to be a great item to build. We also have blue buff change, a big change here. I'm not really sure how I feel about this one. I do like that you do get the bonus ability power and that your maximum mana is reduced by 10. But now that extra mana is dependent on you getting a takedown, which in some cases will be satisfying, but I think especially early game, it might feel a little bit lackluster. Maybe it's not an auto slam anymore unless you have a trait that really works well with a lot of mana. Since we're talking about mana items, Shojin is the other mana item that is changing. Now every third attack you get bonus mana, but instead of 5 mana you get 10. So every 3 auto attacks you're going to get 10 mana versus 15. And the reason behind this change is that a lot of time that extra 5 mana got wasted anyways, so it should make the item a little less clunky, but at the same time you're going to get a little bit less mana. So if you have a high casting carry that took 6 auto attacks to cast anyways, where you were getting that bonus 10 mana, that's the only really downside to it, so we'll have to wait and see what happens there. It does get some more AP in compensation though. Shroud of Stillness, this is not that big of a change. It doesn't say in this tooltip here, they haven't updated it yet, but it's going to grant some extra health. So I guess it's more viable as a core item on a tank, but I still think it's going to be one of those items you see on a carousel. It's going to be great to get that cheese off in the late game and help turn the tides on some fights, and then you can kind of keep recycling those units and place them at the last moment to get the actual effect off on the most units possible. Last Whisper now is actually an attack damage item, so it will give you 15% bonus attack damage, and that will be great combined with the Shred. It should be a premier best in slot item for most AD champs at this time around. Dragon Claw, we're actually just getting a little bit less magic resist, but more health regeneration, so definitely better early and late game. If you have the Aegis trait active and you get a lot of magic resist anyways, that maximum health regen is going to be really, really handy. And last but not least, this is a fun one. Deathblade now grants 40% bonus attack damage. As we know, they're moving AD to scaling, so I think that this will not be such a wasted item. I feel like Deathblade, unless it's really overpowered, is really underpowered. I think now we might be seeing the sweet spot to hit this. I'm not going to go over all the spatulas because some of them truly you probably won't build unless you just happen to get a lot of that trait. Find an extra spatula, an extra component, and boom, you have another one of that trait. But here are the 4 spatula emblems that I think you should watch out for, because I think that they will have a lasting effect on this set. Anima Squad I think is going to be really strong, because if you get an early spatula and an early needlessly large rod and you build it on a champ that can get a lot of takedowns, you can start stacking the maximum health for your team really quickly and really early, and it just gives you one more unit to help stack the trait. So you put it on any decent unit and I think it's going to make your team a lot stronger. Admin, because it is a customizable trait, plus it is using cloak, so a lot of people have a lot of extra cloaks usually, and it might be something that you can just build to unlock the admin trait. I think we just need to watch out for that one, because you can customize it in a bunch of different ways, so it could make your team comp a little bit more sneaky and a little bit more powerful. I also think on a 4 cost carry or a 5 cost carry, the Ox Force emblem is going to be really strong because they get that invulnerability right before they die. So if they can do a ton of damage and heal up, it's almost going to be like that Edge of Night / Guardian Angel effect, and we all know how that goes. And last but not least, because it is a last unit standing type of trait where you get an immense power boost for being the last trait, if this emblem falls into the right hands, or if it's your opponent the wrong hands, this could be devastating. So I think those are going to be the 4 emblems that we can expect to see being built a lot, and us having to, as players, really navigate around. So if you are enjoying these guides and you're getting good information, please leave a like, subscribe, it really helps me out, and that way you are going to be informed when my next guides and videos come out. Until then, cheers.